At this point in history, MrBeast needs no introduction. Regardless if you watch his content, you are aware of his existence and what he has accomplished, becoming the fastest growing channel on YouTube. How long have you been following him though? A month? A year? Maybe multiple. But you surely haven't been there since the beginning. Since he had single-digit subscribers? I used to be his idea man, coming up with the newest thing to hit the web with to try and gain traction on this godforsaken platform. I worked with MrBeast closely for a while in the early days, back before he became such a beloved sensation. There were some duds and some popular ones, but there was one thing he wanted to attempt for the very first official giveaway on the channel. A video that has long since been deleted and purged from the internet entirely. Or so he thought. You see, on the internet someone is always watching, archiving, downloading, screenshotting. It's nearly impossible to get away with anything without some unlucky soul seeing it. The idea came to him in a dream years ago, he claimed anyway. To achieve the most intriguing content giveaway on all of the internet. Kind of like a TV show, except you can block all the ads. I thought it sounded like a fantastic plan. At first. You see, MrBeast wanted to recreate a sort of most dangerous game type of giveaway. Send people into the forest, jungle or whatever location, and whoever is the last to be found by the so-called hunters wins. Think of it as an advanced version of hide-and-seek that can last days at a time. Or more. Unfortunately, since no one on our team had any experience, the proper precautions were not taken. We just wung it. On the orders of MrBeast, of course. It was a bright October morning in a location I will not disclose. Just know that it was pretty hot out even in the month of Halloween. He thought it would give it a good vibe, making it so close to the holiday of frights. We arrived to scout the area and decide on the 5 contestants to contact out of the list of those who voluntarily signed up. The funny part about this is that the video that was put up asking for volunteers is still up on the channel. Although, nothing of what the giveaway challenge entailed was to be disclosed to keep people from pre-training. The prize, however, was disclosed. $50,000. Now, that may seem like chump change in comparison to the monetary amounts he gives away nowadays, but keep in mind this was way before he was known by every common man and woman on the internet. We had our 5 contestants selected. I will not use their actual names, but we'll call them Joanna, Ben, Steve, Rachel, and Jessica. MrBeast had them give a little background on themselves when they entered to potentially participate, so we could better select the proper contestants from the crowd. Joanna was a veterinarian who wanted to open her own animal sanctuary, age 23. Ben was a college soccer star studying biology, age 21. Steve was the youngest of the group, aged 18, who had just graduated high school that summer. Rachel was a college dropout who started her own beauty salon, aged 24. Lastly, we have Jessica, the oldest of the group at 26, whose card read that she enjoyed hiking, camping and scuba diving. They all seemed interesting enough for an episode of a TV show, I guess. Everything was set into motion. The winners were contacted and told what the challenge was going to be. Anyone who wanted to could opt out now. Ben was the only one who had to drop out of the contest. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get out of previous obligations for the days being allotted. He was replaced with Spencer, the new youngest of the group at 15, who enjoyed hunting, fishing and all kinds of other outdoor activities. We had assumed the contest would be over in a few hours. It was starting at sunrise and there were 10 hunters to be rotated in and out on 5-man shifts. Even if night fell, MrBeast figured 1.5 days was the absolute max we needed to track them all down. They were all given a backpack with a wide selection of survival gear to select from, including food and an emergency walkie-talkie. Those were the 2 things MrBeast required them all to take. Everything else was optional. The cameras were set up through the forest, which was near exactly 20 miles north to south and east to west. We also had a cameraman trailing around each hunter, or if they remain grouped, to gather more footage for the video. The rules were pretty simple. If the hunters see you, they will call out your exact location to prove they are not cheating and just saying that they see someone. I figured Steve or Joanna had the best shot to win just by looking at them, but how it all managed to turn to hell right off the bat I don't know. We gave them all 30 minutes of a head start before the hunters were unleashed into the wild. I wasn't a part of the first group of hunters, but from the gathered footage it was all captured. I saw every second. Rachel was the first to be found. She apparently tried to pull the closer we are to danger the further we are from harm, and climbed up in a massive cedar tree close by the starting point. While climbing back down she lost her footing and plummeted 15 feet to the ground. Rachel was not majorly injured but did land quite awkwardly on her wrists, severely spraining them in the process. This was only a preview of the horrors to come. Rachel had lasted 3 hours in the forest as the hunters scanned the perimeter. Deciding to make their way inward, they split up to cover more ground. None of the others were found during the first shift. Me and the other 4 hunters had the privilege of the night lurk. We had those industrial-level flashlights that seemed to light up the forest scenery for miles upon miles. We were supposed to have found at least another one of them, but it was a deadlock. That forest was freezing at night even with a winter coat on. Trudging through the mud and briar at 3 a.m. is an experience you wouldn't soon forget. MrBeast was checking the footage on the thermal cameras we installed throughout the woods earlier that morning. He informed us that all of them had stopped working every last one. The feed had entirely blacked out. I figured that the chances of them capturing anything good enough to put in the video were slim to none, so I took it as a grain of salt. Our hunter shift was almost over as daybreak was about to hit. We headed in to send out the others. No luck, not a single other contestant found. Jessica was discovered around 7 a.m. the next day. She was found in a cave that was dead center of the forest. She said that she had seen hunters checking it previously, so why would they look again so soon? They told her stories of it being a grizzly bear cave and that she was extremely lucky it had not been there. The hunters claimed they came across a mother bear and a cub earlier in their shift, but this was all a sham for the camera. There was nothing larger than a squirrel in those woods. Supposedly anyway. The day hunters had been the only group to find anyone at this point, so we wanted to make our next shift count. They mentioned they had seen what looked like a makeshift treehouse 10.5 miles to the west and that perhaps one of them was staying there at night. This was the coldest and deepest part of the forest. The mud you walked on at night in this section of the woods was like a lake in the tundra. We honestly thought about just turning back and hoping the day crew could catch them leaving the spot instead. We hadn't found anyone yet though, so we trudged on. Turns out there were 3 makeshift tree houses within about a 2-mile perimeter of each other. We didn't know if they were there beforehand or were crafted by someone. And leave it to this hellish night that it was the third and final one we climbed into that held a contestant. We shined the bright flashlights onto them with cameras rolling, yelling out, "We found you!" But the body lay there still, crumpled up under a sleeping bag. They were sleeping, we all thought. You would be too if you spent the last 2 days hiding like a prison escapee. This was tragically not the case. Spencer had frozen to death laying up in the makeshift treehouse. We didn't know it at the time as we recorded his dead body huddled up, still frozen in a last moment of fear. We had assumed he was just asleep from exhaustion. After the tragic news broke, MrBeast figured he would just edit that part out when producing the final product. But the human brain seldom remembers everything. After this he just kind of ushered the losers along as to not draw attention to what was occurring. Joanna and Steve were the final 2 left. Turns out they had made a secret pact to work together. There were no rules against this, in fact there were no real rules at all. MrBeast had wanted it this way. Contests with a thesis of rules are for losers, he would say. The participants were notified by the emergency walkie-talkies when another was found, so they knew they were the final 2. They started a small fire and cooked up the rest of their food to celebrate. Our shift as the night hunters was about to end, but we smelled the scent of smoke just as the sun began to peek over the bright orange horizon. What a beautiful sight after nights of such travesty. They offered us some of the breakfast as we radioed into MrBeast to notify him that the contest was indeed over. Joanna and Steve had won. MrBeast, as we all know, is a very generous man. Even back in the early days of which we speak. Why split the $50,000 between the winners? He decided on the spot as soon as they returned to the base camp to award them both with $50,000 each. In cash. That body of Spencer was still out there though. No authorities had yet been notified. He was young. His parents would start asking questions very soon. MrBeast wasn't here to play the villain though. Everything was settled out of court as he was not directly responsible. You've probably never even heard of this story or even a rumor of it. MrBeast and a couple of the night hunters, including me, were the only ones aware of what happened in the forest on that fateful October night. This is the first anyone is coming out about it. To my knowledge anyway. MrBeast definitely doesn't want to ruin his perfect image. All the names in this story were changed for similar purposes. He didn't want to let all this work go to waste though. The video of the contest was still to go up. He rushed through the editing and then sent me a copy of the final video. He made the mistake of publishing it before I was able to watch the entire 35 minutes. I stared in disbelief as he had left in the entire length of footage which showed us discovering Spencer's dead, frozen body. Even shining the light and zooming in on his dead face. I texted MrBeast immediately upon viewing this with the simple "take down the video now." He did. Deleting it a mere 15 minutes after it went up. Who knew if anyone archived, downloaded or did anything to it? He informed me to delete it off my PC as soon as possible, as he was going to delete it off his and do a full factory reset as well as getting rid of the computer as a whole. I was just about to pull the plug on the file when I decided to leave it on the hard drive, but remove it from my computer and buy a new one. I still have it to this day many years later. Unfortunately, that PC is gone and the hard drive is not compatible with my Chromebook I use now. It's probably the only copy of the dreaded video that still exists, but then again who knows. If only I could just access and watch it last time.